Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Or if it's your first time, welcome to my channel. My name is Marlene and I talk about eating disorder recovery and everything related to healing the relationship with your own body, with food and with movement. And before we start with this topic, I would completely love to see your comments or suggestions for other topics that you would like me to cover. Also, if anyone you know struggles with an eating disorder and might benefit from my videos, please feel free to share them. And of course, as always, leave a like, leave a follow if you like my content. But let's dive right into the topic as we always do. And today we're going to talk about the set point or the set point weight theory. And that is basically the theory that every person and every body has a biologically determined weight range in which their body is thriving. So in which their body is basically doing its best. And that weight range does not have anything to do with a BMI or any scales like this. And it basically shows you that every body has its own normal, which is why we have so many different body types. Just as your height is genetically determined, your body weight is genetically determined too. And of course, there's like certain things we can do to manipulate that, which a lot of people in eating disorders do, but the body will always try to get back to its normal. So why is that so important when it comes to eating disorders and also to eating disorder recovery? Number one, a lot of clinics and sometimes some professionals still work with very old school methods. They work with a BMI, and sometimes even in clinics, if you get to like a minimum BMI, then they will like change your meal plan. And all these things can be super harmful, first of all, for the person in recovery and for the whole mindset. But second of all, just because some BMI scale says that a random number seems to be not underweight anymore, doesn't mean that this is a good weight for your body. A lot of people, actually the majority of people, have different weight ranges and weight ranges that do not fall into this minimum BMI standard. Some people I know who have like an amazing relationship with their body, with food, and they are thriving and healthy and they look amazing. They probably do not have this BMI that, some clinics are working with. Second of all, it is very, very important to understand that your body is individual, and that is why comparison is never going to help you. And I understand it. It's actually very, very common, especially in eating disorders and also in eating disorder recovery, to compare yourself to others, maybe to family members, maybe to random people on the street, maybe to people you see in the media, just like overall comparison. And that is something that the eating disorder is thriving on, because if you compare yourself to someone else, and oftentimes we actually compare ourselves to people that make us feel bad or worse, even though our own self-perception might not even be reality, then the eating disorder has another reason to, sneak in again and change you again, or like want you to manipulate your weight again. But also in eating disorder recovery, it is very, very common to compare ourselves to others, whether it is being in a clinic and comparing ourselves to, how our body changes versus how other people's body changes, or also if we're outpatients, just to like other people. And again, every person has their own weight range, and there is nothing wrong with that weight range not being in a certain BMI. You guys know already, I'm really not a fan of the BMI at all. And this is actually one of the reasons, because I think the BMI is just like a random number that has been determined by some male white person about like hundreds of years ago. And today we know that every person is beautiful and every person is different. And I know that the metaphor I'm now going to drop might sound a little bit cheesy to some of you, but I still think it's beautiful. I mean, a flower doesn't compare herself to the flower next to her. And we look at flowers or like plants overall, or even animals, and we would never be like, oh, this dog is bigger than that. That's a bad thing. Or this flower has thicker petals than the other one. That's not beautiful. No, we look at them and we see a variety and we think it's beautiful. But unfortunately, it is very, very hard for us as human beings to see that in ourselves. And some of you might even know the feeling of, you look at other people and you see like 10 different body types and you feel like all of them are beautiful. Sometimes in recovery, that perception might change a little bit. Sometimes people who are in a very low weight range or come from a very low weight range might see others and also like kind of judge them if they want to or not. But oftentimes it's also the other way around. I remember when I was in eating disorder recovery, and even when I was in the depth of my eating disorder, I would look at family members and friends, and I never thought something bad about their bodies. Whether they were a little bit more curvy, a little bit more, a little bit less, taller, smaller, it didn't matter to me. My friends and my family was always beautiful to me, and I was always able to see the beauty in them. But at the same time, it was so hard for me to see the beauty in myself. But let's get back to the set point and to the science behind the set points. There's certain things that determine the set point range. And the first thing is, I said it before, genetics. And I know that this can be sometimes a little bit tough to deal with, especially if you're not happy with yourself, because genetics are not really changeable, right? But if we understand that our set point range is genetically determined, it can also give us a little bit of relief, because we can start to trust our bodies to, like, find it's normal. And another point is hormones. And hormones also play a big role, of course, in eating disorder recovery. And even though they are also oftentimes genetically impacted, in eating disorder recovery, our hormones and a bunch of other things get out of whack. So I did make another video about overshoot weight a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to go back and look at that, feel free. But in that video, I explained why the body oftentimes goes into overshoot weight in eating disorder recovery before finding it's normal. And this process of finding it's normal has to do with a set point weight. And sometimes we feel like we have to manipulate our set point. But let me tell you right now, manipulating your set point will never get you food freedom. Because let's say somebody has a certain set point and they're not happy with it and they constantly try to go under it. All the body will do is to try to get back to that point. So let's say a person loses 5 pounds and their body actually needs those extra 5 pounds because that's where it's feeling well and that's where all the bodily functions work best. Well, then the body will maybe slow down the metabolism, increase hunger, the person will have constant thoughts about food, and the body will try to do everything to hold on to those extra 5 points or to gain them back. The other way around, when we go into overshoot weight, this is definitely necessary and something the body does for a reason. And that reason is that the body needs to fix a lot of things and therefore it needs a lot of energy, along other reasons that I'm touching on in my other video about overshoot weight. But once this is not needed anymore, once the body can trust you and knows that there is not a famine anymore, which is why it is so important to eat enough and to constantly eat enough in eating disorder recovery, regardless of how much weight you gained already. Once the body can start to trust you again and has finished healing everything that it needed to heal, it will slowly but surely decrease the weight again until it gets to the set point. And maybe you know those people who, no matter what they eat, they don't go and gain weight. Well, actually, these people are every one of us. Because if we are in our set point range, then we can eat whatever we want and we won't gain weight. But if we are not in our set point range and the body is still gaining weight, well, maybe then the weight we're supposed to be at is a little bit higher. And the thing is, nobody can really tell you where your set point range is. It's oftentimes also hard to tell, especially if you developed an eating disorder in a young age. And then for me, that was the case. I developed an eating disorder in my teenage years and I started recovery 10 years later. So I kind of expected my body to look like my pre-eating disorder recovery body, but that was a teenage body. When I started recovery, I was 25 years old. So I could not expect my 25-year-old body to look like my 17 or 16-year-old body. That's just not how it goes. But again, once I learned about the set point and set point range, I was able to let go of a little bit more control, because I was even if my body will gain a bunch of weight and will go into overshoot, which actually happened, eventually it will find its normal, which also happened. And so going into overshoot was actually pretty freeing for me, because even though I had a hard time to accept my body, I really struggled. I did not want to look at pictures. I struggled with comments. There were so many things that I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to. But after a while, it also gave me food freedom, because I was no matter what, my body got this. My body can handle a lot of food. My body will repair everything, and whatever my body decides to do will be okay. And the food freedom I gained was actually worth it, up to the point where when I was still in overshoot weight, I was I'd rather stay here than to go back to my eating disorder. And then slowly over time, my body adjusted again. But I didn't know that this would happen. And my body does not look like my 16-year-old body. And to be honest, I don't even want it to look like my 16-year-old body anymore. And just a little disclaimer, there are certain things that of course can have an impact on your body weight. For instance, if your thyroid is not working correctly, which I actually just made another video about, or other things. These are medical conditions, and of course they always have to be checked out and have to be treated correctly. But if we're not talking about medical conditions, we have to understand that our bodies are different and have their own weight range. And this brings me to my next point. Health at every size. You might have heard of the term. It often also gets shortened as HAES, health at every size. And this is a term a lot of professionals fortunately work with, and I work with it too, where we are aware of the fact that you can be healthy regardless of your size. We still live in a society where a lot of people actually think being super skinny or even dieting or, regulating your weight, whatever that means, is the healthiest way, when in fact it is not. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys actually know that because you tried that approach and it didn't make you any healthier, did it? So while I am aware that it is really, really hard to live in that kind of society and to be constantly surrounded of diet culture, media, people who talk about this stuff, it is also important to understand health does not have to do with your size. You can be in a bigger body and be completely healthy, while being in a smaller body would actually have a negative impact on all your bodily functions. There's definitely people out there who are, according to the BMI, not underweight, but their bodies are not working properly anymore. And then those people are shocked and they're like, wait, I'm still in a good BMI range and I actually lost some weight, I should be healthier, right? When this is not the case. Unfortunately, there's more and more people out there who also start to talk about, for instance, bodybuilding, dieting, fitness journeys. And I'm not saying that this is entirely bad and I'm not here to judge it, but a lot of those people actually talk about when they go into like a certain phase and they lose some weight, that they have trouble concentrating, that they are cold all the time, that they don't have energy to do any of the things they used to like doing. So these are signs that your body is not where it needs to be in order to thrive. You will feel when you are there. I can trust my body entirely. There's days where I eat a lot of sweets or quote-unquote junk food. I'm actually not a fan of that term. And then there's days where I eat quote-unquote healthy. To me, all of this is healthy because as long as I'm listening to my body, it's healthy. And my diet is very, very balanced because I learned to listen to my body. But I'm also not afraid anymore. If I eat a whole pizza, I eat a whole pizza. I don't have any second thoughts. I am not trying to make up for it. And so I know that my body will probably not change. And this is also one of the reasons why I don't weigh myself. Because first of all, I don't really care. I like my body the way it is. And especially I feel good in my body. So knowing the weight wouldn't really help me. It probably wouldn't trigger me, but it doesn't even help me. And second of all, my weight will go up and down. If I ate a whole pizza, it will probably go up because the pizza itself weighs a little bit. So there's no point for me. I would really wish that more people, and especially more healthcare professionals, would understand that health at every size is truly a thing and that the set point is also a thing. Because there's still a bunch of people out there who have to be afraid at every doctor's visit that the doctor will tell them to lose weight, when in fact they're healthier than some of the people who weigh less. Also, knowing that you feel good, knowing that you eat according to your hunger cues, knowing that your body is where it's supposed to be, and then have some doctor telling you to lose weight is extremely frustrating. Trust me, I've been there. Something else that is really important to keep in mind is that there's a bunch of studies, and I will definitely blend them in here and also put them in the description box, that have shown that we don't actually have a lot of control over our body weight. Up to 80% are determined by our biological set point. And while 20% might sound like a lot for a lot of people, it is actually not. Yes, we can heavily diet or even restrict ourselves, but we all know how that goes. And I think we can all agree that this is something we don't want to do anymore. And if you're watching this video, even if you didn't choose recovery yet, there's a reason why you are watching this video. So part of you actually knows that this is not the life you want to live anymore. So be aware that actually 80% of your body weight is determined. And again, I can understand that if you're already struggling with your weight, it might be a very, very hard fact to swallow. But it might also give you some relief, because that means that you don't even have to do anything. If you learn to eat intuitively, I'm pretty sure that your body will show you what it needs. And that can mean pizza on one day and salad on the other day. But that doesn't mean that you have to eat salad on the other day because you ate pizza before, or that you're allowed to eat pizza because you had salad before. No, that does only mean that your body has different needs, and you can never just cover all those needs with one single meal. So yes, on some days your diet looks like this, and on others your diet looks like that. As long as you are able to listen to your body will be more than fine. And of course, I'm not talking about like food intolerances or allergies, but I guess you get the point. So the bottom line is, if you are thinking about starting recovery, if you're in recovery already, or if you're further along in your recovery journey, start to trust your body. Your body is trying to do the same, but it can only trust you if you constantly eat enough. Once your body can trust you, you can also start to trust it. But there needs to be something going on where your body learns that there's not a famine going on anymore. So once your body trusts you, it will find its normal. It will regulate the hormones, it will make sure that it repairs all the internal and external damage, and it will go back to its normal. And also, one other thing to keep in mind, the set point range is also the range where we are mentally normally doing our best. That can be disturbed by diet culture thoughts or, by eating disorder recovery, because part of our brain is still caught up in all those eating disorder thoughts and like the old ideal that we had. And of course, if our old ideal was like an underweight body type and we then get to our set point range, which is not underweight anymore, that can be hard. But over time, studies actually have shown that if you are at your set point range, your mental health will benefit from it, because that is where everything works best. Also like your hormones and all those chemicals in your brain that actually take care of your mental health. So if you like this video, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions as to that topic or anything else, as always, you can always leave a comment. And otherwise, guys, I will see you in the next one.